idea. So today we're just going to briefly talk about long and synthetic division, but we're actually only today going to talk about long division. We're going to break this up into 2 days. Like I said, I'm going to try to break things up to make it a little easier for us. We're going to talk about long division. Now, I asked you to go ahead and divide this, and Cheyenne got an answer, and I told her I really don't care about the answer. I actually care about the process that we took to do this, right? So the first thing I'm guessing you did was you put 71,683 in a box. Am I right? And you put the 2 on the outside. What'd you do next? Raise your hand and tell me what you did next. Brandon. Why? Okay, so he saw how many times does 2 go into 7 without going over, right? And you got 6. Okay, so we did multiplying. Right? And then what are we doing next? Subtract. Okay, and then we bring down. I'm just going to write bring. I guess I better write down. Okay, and then we divide, right? 5. Oops, yep, 10. 1. I forgot to write divide there, right? So we divided in here, then we multiplied, then we subtracted, and we brought down. And then we did it again. We divided, we multiplied, we subtracted, and we brought down, right? Does McDonald's sell burgers? That's actually how you remember the steps. It's something that, like, some teachers actually will show you, does McDonald's sell burgers? And it's just a way to remember those 4 steps, right? And notice I stopped there because I really don't care about the answer. I care about that 4-step process. That 4-step process will actually help us when I'm using long division with polynomials. Okay, so here's our first example problem. X to the 4th minus 1 divided by x plus 1. And we're going to use long division. We're not going to use synthetic division today. And there is a reason. And it's not because I want to see how much torture I can do to you. Later on in this 9 weeks, we'll actually be graphing rational expressions, in which we then have to find a slant asymptote. And the only way to do that is with some long division. Now, what's missing in the x to the 4th minus 1? What's missing is they're just not writing. They just assume you know. The what? The 0x, right? 0x, 0x squared, and 0x cubed, right? They're not showing the other exponents, are they? So the way I'm going to write this to divide it is I'm going to start with the x to the 4th, but then I'm actually going to fill in a 0x cubed, a 0x squared, a 0x, and then I'll write the minus 1. I want to fill in all of those place values. That way, whenever I'm doing the division, I know what to bring down. I know that there's a 0x squared in here to bring down if I need it. Okay? If I don't need it, I don't need it. It doesn't harm me. But if I do need it and I don't write it in there, I'm squished. And then out here, I'll write the x plus 1. Make sure they're in order, by the way. X plus 1, that's in order, right? These are in order, highest exponent to lowest. So, does McDonald's sell burgers? First step is divide, right? How many times does x go into x to the 4th? Not 4. Third, right? More or less, you can also think of it this way. X times what is x to the 4th? X cubed, right? So that's going to be x cubed. Because if I remultiply them, I'll get that x to the 4th. Yes. Subtracting what part though, Brandon? Yes. All right. So now, does McDonald's, I guess, multiply, right? So what is x to the 3rd times x? X x to the fourth. What is x to the third times 1? X to the third. Okay. Does McDonald's sell? Sell is subtraction, right? I just multiplied x to the third times x to the third times 1. I have to multiply it by everything over there. So now I need to do what operation? Subtract. Now, I'm not good at subtracting. Anybody else in here mess up subtracting? Everybody in here is great. Raise your hand if you're better at adding than you are subtracting. Most of us are, right? So instead, what I like to do is change the sign, and add. Change the signs and add. And I know right now you're looking at like, what do you mean change the signs and add? Well, I just changed them both to minus signs, and now I'm just going to add. If I add these two, what's going to happen? They're going to cancel. If I add these two, what am I left with? Not 0. A negative x cubed, right? 0 plus a negative 1 is? That make sense? All right, so now I'm going to bring down the 0x squared. Now this is tricky. I'm not telling you this is easy. That's why we're going to take a couple days on it. Okay? Now, x times what will give me negative x cubed? Negative x squared. So minus x squared. So now let's multiply. What is negative x squared times x? Negative x to the third. What's negative x squared times 1? Negative x squared. So like I said, I don't like subtracting. I like to change the signs and add. And that may be something you want to write down. Change the signs and add. Here's what I mean by that. I'm even going to change colors. I'm going to change the signs, and now I'm just going to add the columns. If I add these two, what's going to happen? They're going to cancel. If I add these two, what's going to happen? I get a positive x squared. You don't have to write the plus sign I just did. Okay, you don't have to though. And I'll bring down the 0x. Now are you guys seeing why I wrote all those in? They're kind of necessary to keep bringing down, right? Well, if you have no x squared and I give you an x squared, how many do you have? I just like a placeholder. Like if I don't put a placeholder in here, then I'm switched to it. So I like it just so I know what I'm adding. Like you don't have to bring it down, is that what you're saying? I would, just because I like to see it. If you don't want to, you technically don't have to, but you'll probably make less mistakes if you bring it down. Okay, so x times what is x squared? X, right? So I'm going to write plus x. So x times x is x squared. X times 1 is 1x, right? What do I like to do next? Change the signs and add. So then I get negative 1x. I'll bring down the minus 1. All right, we're almost done. We're getting there, right? Okay, x times what gives me negative 1x? A negative 1. X. You didn't stop me. Oh. Okay. Right here? So I changed the signs and I added. And I brought down, and then I figured that out, and I changed the signs and I added. Okay. So now we're on the minus 1. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x, right? Negative 1 times 1 is Change the signs and add. Change the sign. Oh, no, I add. What do I get? 0. That means I get a remainder of. Ah, it's a remainder of 0. So this is my answer. And that's it. Now, listen. This is difficult. I'm not telling you this is like the easiest thing in the world. The steps as you go through them are pretty easy, right? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. The 4 steps are easy. But when you throw it into polynomial division, it's not, is it? It is a lot of thinking. Now, instead of me giving you 6 homework problems tonight, I'm giving you 1. And we'll check it tomorrow, okay? I'm not going to grade it, but you want to try it because otherwise your brain doesn't get used to it, right? Here's the 1 problem. You can put it right in your notes even. How nice is that? You can put it right in your notes if you'd like. Because that's our next note problem. Uh-huh. It looks rough. I promise you it's really not that bad.